Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I would like to welcome you to the 2009 commencement at Dartmouth College. This commencement takes place in the college's 239th year. The opening prayer will be offered by Richard Crocker, College Chaplain and Dean of the Tucker Foundation.
Today we celebrate and remember with gratitude and joy, as well as with anxiety and regret. We gaze at each other, family and friends, teachers and students, aware of the gifts given and received, and of those who, in their absence, are keenly present. Here in this special place, now at this special moment, so much love, so much effort, so much promise come to a focus that we can only name as holy. To God, the source, sustainer, and spirit of all that has been, is now, and ever will be, the rhythm of our hearts beats praise. Amen.
Candidates for advanced degrees will be presented by their respective deans. A professional photographer is present, so we will appreciate the audience cooperation in keeping the aisles clear. Because of today's wet conditions, and in order to preserve the parchment and calligraphy on the diplomas, students will not receive their diplomas when they come forward, but will have their names announced and accept the congratulations of their deans. Graduating students may pick up their diplomas at the following locations immediately following the ceremony. Undergraduate students in Robinson Hall until 2 p.m. Thayer graduates, Cummings Great Hall Programs Office. Graduate students in the arts and sciences, along with graduates of the Dartmouth Institute, 3rd floor, Wentworth Hall. Dartmouth Medical School, 302 Remsen Student Affairs Office. Tuck graduates may pick up their degrees on Monday in 111 Tuck Hall in the MBA program office. Guests wishing to view the ceremony indoors on closed-circuit television may do so in one of the following rain locations. I would remind you, however, that seating is very limited. Dartmouth Hall 105, Collis Common Ground, Spalding Auditorium in the Hopkins Center, and Carson Hall, room 60, which is reserved for accessible seating. If you need help in finding any of these places, please ask one of the ushers. The candidates for the degree of Master of Business Administration will now be presented by Dean Paul Danos.
Mr. President, women and men standing before you have completed all the requirements for the degree of Master of Business Administration. At the request of the faculty of the Amos Tuck School and on their behalf, I'm proud to present the candidates for your conferring of those degrees.
The candidates for the degree of Bachelor of Engineering and Master of Engineering Management will now be presented by Dean Joseph Helble.
Mr. President, the women and men now before you have completed all of the requirements for the degrees of Bachelor of Engineering and Master of Engineering Management. At the request of the faculty of the Thayer School of Engineering and on their behalf, I am proud to present them to you for the awarding of those degrees.
The candidates for the degrees of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies, Master of Arts, and Master of Science will now be presented by Dean Brian Pogue.
Mr. President, the Arts and Science graduate students standing before you have completed all the requirements of Dartmouth College for the degrees of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies, Master of Arts, or Master of Science. At the request of the faculty and on their behalf, I proudly present them to you for the awarding of those degrees.
The candidates for the degree of Master of Public Health will now be presented by Dean William Green.
Mr. President, the women and men now presented to you have completed all of the requirements of Dartmouth Medical School for the degree of Master of Public Health. At the request of the faculty and on their behalf, I am proud to present these candidates for your conferring of those degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Dartmouth College, I confer upon you the degrees witnessed by the testimonials you are about to receive and declare you entitled to all of the rights, honors, and special obligations pertaining thereto.
Will the degree recipients please come forward?
For the degree of Master of Business Administration, Andrew E. Irvin.
For the degree of Bachelor of Engineering, Emily Porter Plum.
Nantara Agarwal.
Kristen Cotting Barnico.
Alexander E. Armstrong.
Catherine Boucher.
Francesco Barua.
Bruce Corliss.
Lokesh Bidan.
Robert Joseph Courtney.
Chago Calheros.
Robert Nicholas D'Angelo.
Emily Finnan Carroll.
Gregory Detweiler.
Charles Sita.
Matthew Elwin.
Rafael Lessa Coelho.
Joseph Shimon Friedman.
Brian J. Cormican.
Marissa Justina.
Michelle Coyle.
Catherine Gray.
William Andrew Cronin.
Michael Tafadzwa Gwaza.
Patrick Robert Cunningham.
Ashley Marie Heist.
Jia Dai.
Benjamin B. Hommelson Meister.
Sergio Diaz.
Abhijit Jha.
Natesh Dixit.
Witsuta Paupau Jiwarek Yavech.
Jacob Stephen Dixon.
Christopher Koppel.
Thomas McCain Dougherty.
Dana Leland.
Elizabeth Jane Dutton.
Stig Eric Anton Lundqvist.
David Thomas Earp.
Monica Ann Martine Bustamante.
Andreas Gomez.
Thomas Paul Matthews.
Tian Tian Guo.
Tyler Stewart McIntyre.
Aaron Henkler.
Brian Mangvasser.
Chi Lung Shao.
Lauren M. Miller.
Neil Hunt.
Krista Ann Miller Shelley.
Adeswa Igala.
Eric Oscar Axel Mullen.
Otto Crucius.
Christopher Bartlett Knoll.
Kalyan Kuchimanchi.
Dean Chiu.
Francesco Latore.
Stephen Reinitz.
Eunice Latinist.
Nolan Herman Reese.
Tao Lu.
Charles Andrew Richter.
Chongshi Ma.
Jesse Jane Schwartz.
Igor L. Machura.
Brooks Holden Smith.
Aaron Mickelson Mahali.
Halen Lynn Spaplek.
Miguel Munoz Marin.
Margaret Marion Sullivan.
Mahesh Murarka.
Oliver Townsend.
Jonathan Morrell.
For the degree of Master of Engineering Management, Stephanie Marie Meyer.
Katrin Nalman.
Hemant Kumar Alura.
Rama Rao Oraganti.
Parul Batra.
Sujan Pundaram.
Mark Roger Beauregard.
Shivam Rajdev.
Deepti Bobili.
Vivek Raval.
Anand Bosha.
Shamir Razuk Philo.
Thierry Collier.
Ludwig Quincy Raymer.
Richard Michael Sandrani.
Axel Hobin.
Kamakshi Chakrapani.
Daniel Rodriguez.
Abdallah Johnny Chamas.
Milagros Sáenz Gonzalez.
Drawe Chen.
Anish Sani.
Rebecca Christine Cole.
Andrea Santos Brito.
Mark Nicholas Crisimonia.
Maria Sharetz.
Adam Matthew Danaher.
Hannes Schill.
Liang Wang.
Tegu Dominguez Situmorang.
Yimin Zhang.
Cameron J. Solberg.
Uzwal Karail.
Giacomo Sonino.
Benny Leong.
Jana Swedberg.
Muli.
Manish Tangri.
Sharitha Reddy Linga.
Nicholas Thorndike.
William Albert Lynch.
Everett Tillmans.
Rashmi Redda Nala.
Rob Tillmans.
Sanath Kumar.
Charles Anthony Toy III.
Andrew James Pitts.
Eusebio Moses Vahil.
Swetha Sumpathi Giri.
Kristen Wormuth.
Ramya Piaradetsina Sabaraj.
Nakia Jewett Wright.
Miral Anup Shithia.
Karen Yu.
Vyas Swaminathan.
Dennis Jinhua Zhang.
Vivek Raj Thadani. Kejang. For the degree of Master of Arts in Liberal Studies, Melissa Erica Melendez. Lina Alaola Ime. Kenneth Martin Cato. Lindsay G. Davis. Minfang. Anthony Philip Garcia. Ilana Kohn Grallert. Jordan B. Greenberg. Linny Sarah Cook Helpern. Matthew C. Hill. Joshua Hilliard. Matthew Hull. Ashley Braxton James. Ting Kang. Catherine Laconte. Christy Marie McAdams. Heidi V. McCann. Jujana Mitro. Diane Montgomery. Amber Lynn Morse. William Derrick Parker. Mikkel Runyon. Caitlin Roxon Scuderi. Melissa Sinner Shea. Jacqueline Sievert. Brian Joseph Smith. Christopher William Tucker. Vanessa Visara. For the degree of Master of Arts, Michael Takase Sheenan. Anne Patricia Fercadilla Wan. Norbert Klein Vector. Patricia Marie Lamberti. Andrea Soibert. Alec Wall. Thomas Patrick Wisniewski. Christina Marie Wolfe. For the degree of Master of Science, Addison Andre Bouchard. Leanne Cheng Brash. Nicole Laura Buck. Feifei Shu. Diane M. Farris. Denise Bess Stell. Barsam Yan. Jennifer Caitlin Watt. Shanshan Liu. Donald Richard Zemick. Jennifer N. Morgan. Corey A. Siegel. Lauren M. Simpson. Candidates for the degree of Master of Public Health: Shaylee R. Shaw. Makita Emebet Agunafar. Jabin Ahmad. Bethany Byer. Layla Bubshet. Caitlin A. Brennan. Anna Shin. Jared Conley. Jobeen Cameron Cyrus. Matthew Hanscom Davis. Danielle E. DeMarco. Matthew Engel. Matthew Scout Garner. Simon Hayter. Emily E. Homan. Prashant G. Iyer. Anna Rivard King. Daniel M. Lee. Belinda Vian Luke. Catherine Christina Mashalaba. Isaac Iskander Maru. Nadine D. McLeod. Helga Elinama Nabure. Matthew Ong. Vijay Prasad. Cheryl Ellen Prigodich. Jessica Lee Rosenblum. Elise Philippa Schulman. Emily Smith. Benjamin Matthew Snyder. Shannon M. Sweeney. Tanushri Vashisht. Lamvo. Luke E. Virtaler.
The candidates for the degree of Doctor of Medicine will now be presented by Dean William Green.
Mr. President, the women and men now presented to you have completed all of the requirements of Dartmouth Medical School for the degree of Doctor of Medicine. At the request of the faculty and on their behalf, I am proud to present these candidates to you for your conferring of those degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Dartmouth College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Medicine and declare you entitled to all of the rights, honors, and special obligations pertaining thereto.
Will the degree recipients please come forward?
William Andrew Cronin. Daniel Bynum Basilewicz. Carolyn Jean Bevan. Peter Sanborn Burridge. Sword Cambron. Gerard Gregory Carroll. Alexis Anja Kavik. Frederick Forsick Crow. Caroline Natalie Dejean. Dichien Huang. Jillian Kathleen LeClaire. Benjamin Edward Northrup. Carolyn Jean Presley. Emily Beth Rubin. Jennifer Carr Murray Talmadge. Quay Ton. Kenneth Ray Will. Christopher Michael Warstein. And Vasilina Petkova Zheleva. Congratulations to the DMS MD class of 2009, including all of your classmates who couldn't be here today so they could travel to begin their residencies. Congratulations.
Candidates for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy will now be presented by Dean Brian Pogue.
Mr. President, the arts and science graduate students standing before you have completed all of the requirements for the of Dartmouth College for the degree of Doctor of Philosophy. At the request of the faculty and on their behalf, I now proudly present each of them to you for the awarding of those degrees.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Dartmouth College, I confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Philosophy and declare you entitled to all of the rights, honors, and special obligations pertaining thereto.
Will the degree candidates please come forward?
Degree, Doctor of Philosophy, David Simon Lukowski, Engineering Sciences. Samuel Bakum, Biochemistry. Amaret Barber, Microbiology and Immunology. Jonathan Spencer Barlow, Engineering Sciences. Satarupa Baso, Microbiology and Immunology. Peter A. Balenki, Biochemistry. Amanda Birdsey Benson, Biochemistry. Jessica Suzanne Blackburn, Biochemistry. Benjamin Ryan Bollinger, Engineering Sciences. Jonathan Henry Brown, Mathematics. Seth Jonathan Brown, Genetics. Catherine A. Bew, Biochemistry. Yu Kai, Chemistry. Colin Morehouse Carpenter, Engineering Sciences. Cynthia Chen, Earth Sciences. Christopher A. Colpitz, Physics and Astronomy. Scott Foster Daniel, Physics and Astronomy. Samantha M. Desmarais, Chemistry. Yvonne Yushan Feng, Health Policy and Clinical Practice. Liang Feng Fu, Chemistry. Justin James Gaudet, Biochemistry. Professor Rimbers. Timothy John Gilhart, Physics and Astronomy. Avinash Gill, Biochemistry. Jeff Gailey, Mathematics. Severina N. Haddad, Physiology. Hui Huang, Chemistry. Jian Zhong, Biological Sciences. Craig Duncan Jude, Genetics. Kumju Kim, Engineering Sciences. Rajiv Kumar, Engineering Sciences. Andrea Maleka Kunder, Physics and Astronomy. Melissa Jean Lathrop, Microbiology and Immunology. Juhyun Lee, Biological Sciences. Fenghong Liu, Engineering Sciences. C. Liu, Pharmacology and Toxicology. John M. Mahoney, Mathematics. Christopher Paul Masson, Computer Science. Edward Eric Meyer, Earth Sciences. Charles R. Midget, Biochemistry. Russell David Mons, Microbiology and Immunology. Onwesha Nong, Biological Sciences. Divas Nayupane, Pharmacology and Toxicology. Susan Nicholson Dykstra, Biochemistry. David J. Nuwaida, Health Policy and Clinical Practice. Kimberly A. W. Peasley, Chemistry. Andrew N. Quicksall, Earth Sciences. David C. Radley, Health Policy and Clinical Practice. Jennifer Lorente Sargent, Genetics. Jolene V. Schuster, Chemistry. Eric E. Stanga, Biological Sciences. John James Thomas, Computer Science. Wei Wong, Chemistry. Jia Wong, Physics and Astronomy. Sarah Suchen Wong, Psychology and Brain Sciences. Wei Hong Wong, Computer Science. Song Yi, Computer Science. Congratulations.
Before proceeding further in the ceremony, I have the honor and privilege of presenting at the request of the Board of Trustees, and I am sure with unanimous approval of the faculty, 2 candidates for honorary degrees who will now be presented by the Chair of the Board of Trustees, Ed Haldeman.
On behalf of the college's Board of Trustees, I present to you 2 remarkable individuals for the conferring upon each of them degrees honoris causa. I ask the platform marshal to please escort Susan Debevoise Wright to the platform. President Wright, please step forward. Together, you had the right stuff to shape this institution for generations to come. In the 40 years since you came to Hanover, Jim, you have served as teacher, scholar, dean, acting president, provost, and president. Your leadership has led to stronger academic programs, remarkable improvements to the physical campus, an expanded financial aid program, enhanced student life, and increased diversity across the community. You have honored our traditions while ensuring that the education provided here remains relevant to the world in which we live and to the future we face. You advocated for educational access on the national stage, particularly for veterans and those less privileged. Susan, in the more than 30 years that you have been part of the Dartmouth community, you have mentored thousands of students as a class dean, international student advisor, and associate director of career services. Your reach is broad. Under your direction, the Montgomery Endowment thrived, and you created wonderfully intimate opportunities for outstanding visitors to stimulate conversations on our campus. We celebrate your generous spirit and your work on behalf of community institutions such as the Norris Cotton Cancer Center and the Upper Valley United Way. Jim and Susan, Dartmouth has also greatly benefited from your special partnership. Both wonderful ambassadors, you sang the praises of the good work of faculty, students, staff, and alumni wherever you went. In times of sorrow and great loss, you held us in your embrace and helped us to move forward. Daily, you demonstrated the hope that is nestled within all of us and within the soul of this institution. Susan, with gratitude for the impact you have had on this community, we are pleased to confer the honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters. Finally, it is Dartmouth's turn to say thank you, Jim, for your dedication and stewardship of this college. It is our delight to award you the honorary degree, Doctor of Laws.
Mr. President, on behalf of Dartmouth's faculties, and pursuant to votes by the college's Board of Trustees, I present to you 6 remarkable individuals for the conferring upon each of them the degree honoris causa. First, for the degree Doctor of Laws, John P. Abizaid.
John Abizaid, a Lebanese American, you grew up at the edge of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and you graduated from a high school of 105 students. Your drive, abilities, and aspirations were evident to your classmates early, who say that when they thought of you, they thought general. You excelled in every phase of your education and career. After graduating from West Point, you earned an Olmsted Scholarship that allowed you to attend the University of Jordan, where you studied Arabic. As a young Army officer, you distinguished yourself by your courage in combat and by the outstanding success and variety of your commands, which included Northern Iraq and Bosnia-Herzegovina. You served as Commandant of West Point and Director of the Joint Staff, your country further affirmed your leadership by appointing you Commander of the U.S. Central Command during 2003 through 2007, where you had responsibility for military strategy and joint operations in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Persian Gulf, overseeing both combat and humanitarian operations. Dartmouth honors your dedication as a soldier and the vision you have brought to the service of our country. A four-star general equally respected by troops in the field as by international leaders, you have advocated for the importance of understanding other governments and cultures. In tribute to your many years of military leadership and your continuing efforts to encourage better global understanding, Dartmouth awards you the honorary degree, Doctor of Laws.
I regret that due to a serious family illness, the next individual listed in your program, Roz Chast, is not able to join us today. And now, Mr. President, for the degree Doctor of Science, Raymond B. Johnson, class of '59.
Raymond B. Johnson, Dartmouth class of 1959. Growing up in Washington, D.C., the son of an interior decorator and painter without a college education, you wrote in your Dartmouth application about the values you had learned at home, and as an Eagle Scout, especially respect for others and helpfulness. And these are values that have guided you through your long career. A psychology major in the class of 1959, your activities at Dartmouth included Winter Carnival, Ledyard Canoe Club, the German Club, and Delta Upsilon. You went on to graduate from Howard University College of Medicine, joined the Navy Medical Corps, and distinguished yourself as a physician, scientist, and the first African American to be appointed commanding officer at 2 different naval medical centers. Retiring from active service in 1985, you launched an equally successful career in the Department of Clinical Research at Pfizer, where you focused on the development of antibiotics to treat typhoid fever and sexually transmitted diseases, and documented your work in more than 60 publications. Your extensive community service addresses the needs of disadvantaged youth and mental health problems. Fellow trustees of the Waterford Country School named the Children's Medical Clinic in your honor, recognizing your commitment and effectiveness in improving the lives of children. Your alma mater is grateful for your selfless accomplishments and takes special pride in recognizing you with the honorary degree, Doctor of Science.
Mr. President, for the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, Maria Otero.
I'm missing a program here. Maybe we go ahead with Lubchenco Barry.
Okay, we'll skip ahead for one moment here, okay? Okay, Mr. President, for the degree Doctor of Science, Jane Lubchenco.
Jane Lubchenco, the daughter of a pediatrician and a surgeon, you grew up in Colorado with a love for the land. But it was a college class at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute in Massachusetts that exposed you to the wonders of the ocean and set your life's work in motion. A commitment to scientific research and advocacy for the health of our oceans our planet, and the people and creatures that inhabit it. You have focused on the interactions between humans and the environment, examining the intricacies of marine systems along the U.S. West Coast, changes in the state of the oceans, and alterations in climate and biodiversity. At the same time, you have offered a new vision for science and scientists, urging your colleagues to participate in public policy debates and management decisions. You twice served on the National Science Board. You presided over the American Association for the Advancement of Science and the Ecological Society of America, and you founded 3 groundbreaking groups that communicate scientific knowledge to policymakers and the public. In recognition of your work and the power of your vision, President Obama has appointed you head of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. With gratitude and admiration for your leadership, Dartmouth now presents you with its honorary degree, Doctor of Science.
Mr. President, for the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, William F. Russell.
William F. Russell, you revolutionized your sport and helped pave the way for African Americans in basketball and in American society. An NCAA champion and Olympic gold medalist, you were the cornerstone of the storied Boston Celtics. You led the team to 11 NBA titles, first as a player and then as a player coach. A 5-time winner of the NBA's Most Valuable Player Award, a 12-time NBA All-Star, the first African-American coach of a major league professional team, and a strategic thinker who transformed NBA defensive concepts, you have been called the greatest player in the history of the NBA. This year, the league named its award for the most valuable player in the finals for you. Your reach extended far beyond the basketball court. Born in Louisiana, you grew to adulthood during an era of overt racism, but you learned from your father and grandfather never to be a victim. You challenged the segregation and prejudice you experienced in the NBA and our wider society. You traveled to South America and Africa for the U.S. State Department and held integrated basketball clinics in Mississippi immediately following the murder of Medgar Evers. And you have devoted yourself to encouraging and supporting young people, serving on the board of the National Mentoring Partnership for many years. Celebrating your achievements on and off the court, Dartmouth is delighted to recognize you by its bestowal of the honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters.
Okay. And now, okay. And once again, for the degree Doctor of Humane Letters, Maria Otero.
Maria Otero, you came to this country from Bolivia when you were 12 years old, and you have embraced both America and Bolivia as parts of yourself. Following your undergraduate years at the University of Maryland, you committed yourself to helping the world's poor, and women in particular, become less economically vulnerable. Through positions at the Inter-American Foundation and the Center for Development and Population Activities, you provided the grants and leadership training needed to make lasting changes for people in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Since 1986, you have worked for Action International, effectively blending the worlds of finance and social change. You have enabled a great many small entrepreneurs to access business loans, bringing stability to their families and a sustainable infrastructure to their communities. Named President and CEO in 2000, your leadership has made this groundbreaking organization a model for development. The results of your work have been impressive, but the true impact of your efforts will be seen and felt for generations to come as you continue to work to eradicate poverty. Last month, President Obama nominated you to serve as Undersecretary of State for Democracy and Global Affairs. Just as you learn from the people directly served through your work, so too do we learn from your commitment to a better life for all. With gratitude for those lessons, Dartmouth confers its honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters.
Mr. President, for the degree Doctor of Letters, Louise Erdrich, class of '76.
Louise Erdrich, Dartmouth class of 1976, a member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa. You grew up in Wahpeton, North Dakota, with an Ojibwe French mother and a German-American father. Matriculating at Dartmouth in 1972 as the first class of women and the first class in our Native American program, you went on to become an internationally recognized poet and writer. Love Medicine, your first novel, won the National Book Critics Circle Award. Translated into more than 20 languages, your work appears often on bestseller lists, and you have received prestigious awards. Today, you continue your writing and devote yourself to learning to speak Ojibwe, the language of your mother's people. With your sister, Erdrich, 86, you operate a marvelous nonprofit independent bookstore, Birch Bark Books, and the Birch Bark House Foundation, which support Native writing, language, and cultures. Life does not necessarily have simple and obvious beginnings and endings. Neither do your stories. The threads of the tales loop and circle back and forward in time. Cultures collide and mix. Lives interlock and clash, and there are no simple truths. In the poem, Little Blue Eyeglasses, you ask that your daughter be empowered to, quote, train her eyes upon the truth and to see within the truth the strength to bear the truth. For your wisdom in seeing and your skill in setting before us the hard truths and the stunning beauties of human lives, Dartmouth welcomes you home and proudly awards you the honorary degree, Doctor of Letters.
All right, give me a minute to wipe the tears out of my eyes here. Oh, I'm so happy to be here. It's a tremendous honor. Thank you all for your welcome. And thank you, Jim Wright and Susan Wright. As I look out, I see incredible transformations here at this college since I was here. And it does me good, it does everyone good. Congratulations to you all on your new president as well. I'm going to have to stop. Jim Yong Kim. I'd like to also offer my admiration to the other recipients of honorary degrees. It's a pleasure and an honor to be among you. And I'd like to acknowledge my relatives and my ancestors, Nindinawe Maganidok, including the first Native people who were educated on this very ground, which is Abnaki homeland, Dartmouth College. Class of 2009, I'm so delighted to be your speaker. And although I have written many long books in my career, I'm also a former Kentucky Fried Chicken waitress. So I understand brevity. This speech will be about 11.5 minutes long, more or less, and there will be chickens in it. Yes, I'm a member of the class of 1976, the first year that women went all the way through college here, and the first year that this college recommitted itself to the Native American program. And so this honor for me is really received for all of the Native people who came here and didn't make it, and for all of the women in those first classes who persevered. But there's also one question I would like to answer, one I was recently asked. The answer to the question, yes, is the answer. We did in those days play an ancient form of Pong. So I'm a storyteller, and that's where I'm going to begin. Story one, The Courage of Chickens, 1972. Now, the morning I was to leave for Dartmouth College, from my home in Wapaton, North Dakota, which I'd almost never left, I almost didn't go. The reason I was coming in the first place was because my mother, a strong Turtle Mountain Chippewa woman, had seen a picture of the Dartmouth ice sculpture from Winter Carnival in the National Geographic magazine. And she thought this was a wonderful place where ice sculptures were made. And Native people it was established to educate Native people. So this was a wonderful thing. And I applied because of her. I had never been on a plane. I was most afraid of negotiating that change at Boston's Logan Airport, but got through that and then boarded a smaller plane, which at the time carried mail and freight and whatever else was needed in the Upper Valley, including livestock. And on that day, they were carrying crates of baby chicks. Right in back of the cabin, there was a little, there was just a little curtain between us and the chicks. And every time the plane went over a bump of air, the chicks started peeping. They went peep, beep, 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 beep. All the way here, there was this sound of the baby chicks. They were terrified, but in their terror, they did not cower. They did not fall silent. They stood up together and they made noise. And they taught me a little lesson. They taught me to feel less afraid myself. After all, they didn't know the plane was even going to land. And I could tell it probably would. The pilot looked like he slept. So when you're afraid, get your friends around you, don't panic, and picture what you fear. Most of the time, once you analyze your fear, it will be something, and unless you're in a life and death situation, it will be something like failure or humiliation. Now that's something I know about. So my story next is the uses of humiliation, or the law of the onion. So by the end of that first year and into the second, I was probably cracking and frying those very eggs the chickens laid onto the Thayer dining hall grill, because that was my job. I was a breakfast short order cook. My boss was an Army cook who'd converted to vegetarianism. He was a man ahead of his time. But I was the flunky. So before I could earn my spatula, I had to do all the prep work. And one day, I chopped and peeled a 60-pound bag of onions right before class. Then I went off to Introduction to the Problems of Philosophy. And my problem that day was I smelled like an onion. And you know how it is when you smell like an onion, you don't know how bad you smell. So I walked into class and everyone made a little circle while moving away from me. I was sure, being from North Dakota, people were all smarter than me. And now not only were they smarter, but I was the only one who smelled like an onion. The lesson was, I suppose, if you smell like an onion, hold your nose and take notes. So I didn't become a philosophy major, but I did become a writer here. And I became a writer because I understood, even if people were smarter, I had the advantage of knowing onions. And I had the advantage of knowing a little bit about embarrassment or humiliation. And most important of all, I think, was that. Because that's one thing as human beings we all have or will have in common. There's no getting away from it. Absurd humiliation, which can also become the basis of wisdom. The experience caused me to invent the law of the onion. And it goes something like this. You have to risk humiliation or failure if you want to move forward. But the law of the onion also states that humiliation fades if you don't take things personally. If other people's opinions are not personal to you, good or bad, you have the freedom to be who you are. Now, my last story is not quite as simple, and that's because I resolved that for this occasion I would finally solve a problem that bothered me the entire time I was here. And it was connected with my very final and favorite job here, which was in the research library downstairs in Baker. And it was underneath Orozco's mural. So my problem was with Orozco's skeletons. Now, this beautiful mural is a treasure of Dartmouth College, and if any of you parents out there haven't seen it, you must go over and go through the basement of Baker Library. It was begun by Orozco in 1932, and it's the most powerful and exquisite mural in North America. And the doorway to my little office in the microfilm library at the time was right under a piece called Gods of the Western World. Now, over my doorway, and this is going to sound surreal, was a phenomenal picture of a huge skeleton assisted by other skeletons in this sort of academic gown and academic hats like we're mostly wearing, violently giving birth to baby skeletons in academic hats, and most of them were in bell jars. Now again, this mural is a work of the highest genius. However, to an undergraduate, this part of the mural was all so seriously creepy. And you do know what I mean. So as I passed beneath it every day, I tried to get a handle on what it meant. We're all dry skeletons, absorbing dry knowledge, giving birth to little vacuum-packed skeletons. But that's not us sitting here today. Of course not. Look around you. Just take a moment right now to try and absorb this into your memory so you never forget how alive and vital you are at this moment. Feel the fact that the clouds have held off. Feel the energy from these great, old, deep-branched trees. Everyone is here to celebrate the fact that you have acquired knowledge. And with this knowledge, you have the component of something in Ojibwe that is called minobemadaziwin. This is the good life. It's knowledge with fortitude, knowledge with courage, knowledge with generosity and kindness. That's minobemadaziwin. And this concept of minobemadaziwin resonates with that ferocious image of Orozco's skeletons. They tell us this: knowledge without compassion is dead knowledge. Knowledge without love is something to beware of. Beware of knowledge without love. I don't mean Harlequin romance love. I don't write those kind of books. I mean love as in devotion to this world. A world that needs you right now worse than it ever has. Have you ever been in a relationship where you took someone for granted, but he or she seemed resilient? A relationship in which you had the feeling that things were going to be all right in spite of how you'd acted, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got dumped. That's the relationship we're in right now with the earth. But if the earth dumps us, we all do die of broken hearts. And in fact, the numbers are in, the science is done. We are in a nosedive unless we can change as a species. We're like chicks in the crate, peeping, and we don't know if we're going to land. We don't know what's going to happen. There's no pilot. There's just this plane. So while the plane is diving, one chick in the crate turns to the other and says, "Which came first, the chicken or the egg?" And the other chick says, "Hey, that's not the question. The question is, why did the chicken cross the road?" And the third chick says, "Shut up, stop arguing, and help me steer this." No matter what we believe, no matter what our political thoughts or ethnicities or religious faiths, we have to steer this thing. Nindinawe Magani Duk, you are my relatives. We are all related through our common humanity and through our bonds with this place. We're all endeavor as one to make this world better. It is love of peace that makes you a warrior. Love of process that binds you to your work. Love of family that steadies you in all you do. Often, the only answer to questions posed to you all through your life will be a mute and fierce love, an irrational love, a love that simply answers, "I am here." So, go forward and do what you love best. But do it as if it was meant to save the world, as if you were out to save the world, because you are. And if you are criticized and not everyone agrees with you, you say to yourself, "I must be doing something original." And if your efforts are rejected, say, "I will persevere." And if your work fails at first, fail again, fail better, until you triumph. While I was at Dartmouth, my parents wrote to me every week letters, and I saved them all. I reread them before I came here, and I thought I would leave you with 2 lines of their wisdom. My father, a North Dakota school teacher, often closed his letters with the Latin phrase, "Magnum vectigol est parsimoniae," that is, thrift is a source of revenue. Those of you with banking careers ahead, take note. My mother always closed her letters with "I love you." And now in the remaining 30 or so seconds, I'd like to ask you all to rise. And in rising, turn around and look at everyone surrounding you, graduates. Turn around. This is not about me. Instead, I'd like you to recognize all the people who got you through Dartmouth. Cheer and applaud for your parents, the administrators. Cheer for the people in the town of Hanover. Cheer for everyone who meant something to you here at Dartmouth. The librarians, your grandparents who took so long to get here. All the people who cared for you and got you through, your fraternity brothers, your sorority sisters, your friends, everyone who you cared about. And for your president, your future president, your faculty, and everyone, thanks to them too. This is your day. So think of everyone as you go through this up on the stage and realize how much this moment means to everyone around you. Go forward. Do what you love best. Live every day like you're crazy in love with what you do and with this earth, because we need her. So do your best for this beautiful old world. Thank you.
At this time, it's my privilege to recognize those members of the faculty and administration who are retiring this academic year after long and devoted service to Dartmouth. An alphabetical listing of them can be found in the commencement program. I would ask you to join me in thanking them for their many contributions. I would also like to take this opportunity to ask all of you to join me in welcoming back this day the 50th year reunion class, the class of 1959. Welcome back. And it is my privilege to recognize the recipients of Dartmouth's third annual prize for exceptional elementary and secondary school teaching. Seniors were invited to nominate a teacher who inspired them and helped them on the path to Dartmouth, and then a committee made selections. I would ask the recipients of the 2009 prize if they would stand so we could recognize them. Dixon Britt of Purnell Sweat High School in Pembroke, North Carolina, Mercedes Carbonell of Phillips Exeter Academy in Exeter, New Hampshire, Maya Roos of Savannah Country Day School in Savannah, Georgia, and Ignatios Natelonidis of Leaside High School in Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
This year, we are in the fortunate position of recognizing two graduating students with outstanding academic records. These students share the honor of having the highest academic ranking of the graduating class of 2009 and are being honored as valedictorians of the class. Please join me in recognizing our two valedictorians, each of whom has earned a GPA of 4.0, Jeffrey Kirsch and Young Liu. Both of our valedictorians have chosen to deliver valedictory remarks today. Our first speaker will be Jeffrey Kirsch.
Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees, honored guests, families, and friends. To my fellow graduates in the class of 2009, I cannot begin to express my honor and gratitude, not only to be standing here before you today, but to be counted among you. Your intellect and resolve, your diverse talents, and your basic decency fill me both with pride and with great expectations for our future. To my parents and grandparents, thank you for being with me, not only on this great day, but for 23 years. I hope that my presence at this podium is in some small part a testimony to your love and devotion, and to a debt which I can never truly hope to repay. To the Office of Admissions, thank you for giving me a chance 3 years ago when I made the best decision of my life and applied to Dartmouth as a transfer student. To my professors, thank you for keeping alive, amidst the mind-numbing glare of the 21st century, the brighter flame of the liberal arts tradition, and for passing it on. And to President and Mrs. Wright, thank you for a combined 71 years of service, dedication, and exemplary leadership. Mr. President, on a September morning 4 years ago, you welcomed this class to Dartmouth with a simple announcement: we have work to do. At their own convocation 50 years earlier, the class of 1959 would have heard from another great Dartmouth president, John Sloan Dickey, that their business here was learning. Today would be simple enough to declare that work complete, because after all, we recognize today as the end of our studies at Dartmouth, even if we persist in calling it a beginning or a commencement. Today is the day the so-called Dartmouth bubble bursts, the day our 4 years of knowledge finally lose us this paradise, the day we must bid goodbye to professors and peers alike. I refuse to accept this. In the words of President Dickey, once again, in the Dartmouth Fellowship, there is no parting. The business of learning remains unfinished for all of us. We do not become Dartmouth graduates when we put on these caps and gowns, nor even when we come up to this stage. We became Dartmouth graduates with the long evenings of study and stress, the arduous treks across this snow-covered green in the face of howling winds, and the final exams at 8 in the morning. And yet, we are also still becoming graduates. I hope we've learned something here more valuable than any number of embalmed facts and ideas. I hope we have learned how to learn, that education never really ends, and that our work has only begun. Today we may leave Hanover, but we now possess a Dartmouth within each of us that is greater still. A Dartmouth that, as we shall soon sing in the alma mater, is made part of us till death. This new Dartmouth born again with each of us, is at the same time a very old Dartmouth. It is the Dartmouth that 240 years ago drove a 59-year-old minister from Connecticut north into an unbroken forest and an uncertain future. It is the Dartmouth that lay buried beneath 4 feet of snow and shaded by the towering pines in the hard first winter of 1771. It is the Dartmouth which celebrated its first commencement in that same year, when the governor of New Hampshire and his retinue traveled for days through the woods to honor all 4 graduates of the new college on the frontier. And it is the Dartmouth expressed in those 4 Latin words beneath our college seal: vox clamantis in deserto, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. Today we seem to have inherited little more than that motto. What shall we cry, and in what wilderness will our voices clamor? The land was long ago cleared, the lone pine long ago cut. Our guests and families have arrived from every corner of the globe in less time than it took Governor Wentworth to travel 100 miles in 1771. My words are at this very moment being streamed to an even wider online audience. The invisible dynamo of wireless internet pulsates even across this very green as we mark our graduation on websites and emails sent round the girdled earth. Things seem simulated, deferred, mediated. And so it is easy enough to lament that such comfort and convenience have come at a price, that the wilderness is gone, and with it the adventurous spirit of old Dartmouth, that the college is already built on the hill, the voice in the desert already heard, the books already read, that we stand here today magnificently unprepared for the long littleness of life, crying out for nothing more than a job in this miserable economy. I do not believe this. As long as economy and environment alike are ruined by myopia and greed, as long as hunger and disease plague the world, we languish in a winter as dark and iron and oppressive as the early months of 1771. Wherever we set our learning against ignorance and ideology, we as Dartmouth graduates stand on the edge of a wilderness every bit as tangled and trackless as that which Eleazar Wheelock traveled in 1770. And so wherever we go, let us, in the words of that greatest of American scholars, Ralph Waldo Emerson, walk on our own feet, work with our own hands, and speak our own minds. Whether we walk through cities or forests, whether we work in classrooms or cubicles, whether or not we speak in English, we are all voices crying in the wilderness. Let it be our burden and our privilege to clamor not only for jobs, but to build a highway for culture and intellect, to make straight the crookedness of politics and power, and to make plain the roughness of hardship and injustice. It is a hard task, but it is also one for which I expect we are well prepared. It is the same work we have already begun. There is more work to be done. The wilderness stands all before us. And so, class of 2009, thank you, congratulations, and onward.
Our second speaker is Young Liu.
Mr. President, members of the Board of Trustees, honored guests, family and friends, professors, fellow classmates. In the past few days, we have much eulogized the glorious Collis omelet and the equally glorious Baker Tower room. Yet I fear that I cannot give these places as good a valedictory as most of you. Therefore, I shall speak to you about something that is common to us all as human beings. That something is curiosity. Children are naturally curious. They want to know about every aspect of everything. Where do clouds come from? What is the substance of fire? How do we come into being? And why do we die? Children ask questions because that is what they do. They do not seek to justify these questions or to weigh their relative value. Their curiosity is an attribute of their innocence. But this kind of innocence does not last. As children grow up, they begin to wonder about the purpose and worth of their actions. As they do so, curiosity becomes less of an instinctive quality and more an asset that needs to be actively sustained and nourished. More specifically, curiosity now depends on one's conscious knowledge of the existence of the unknown. This awareness of the unknown can be powerful and inspiring stuff, but it is also something that needs to be cultivated and encouraged. About a week ago, a friend of mine asked my opinion about the freedom of thought in my home country of China. My friend wanted to know whether there is less of such freedom there than in this country. The question was no doubt inspired by news reports about things such as the Great Chinese Firewall, designed to prevent Chinese internet users from accessing websites such as Wikipedia and BBC. As I told my friend, the true cause of censorship in China, and indeed anywhere, has less to do with such electronic barriers, most of which are routinely and easily circumvented. Instead, the true cause has to do with the loss of the awareness of the unknown. People can often manage to obtain information if they know what they want to know, but such knowledge necessarily depends on curiosity. If curiosity is allowed to wither or suppressed, mere access to information counts for very little. The freedom of thought is a basic human right, but not all people choose to exercise that right, even when conditions appear to be favorable. Curiosity can dwindle even when oppression is absent. In such cases, convention and habit take their place. Well, what is the alternative? How is curiosity best fostered and sustained? The challenge, it seems to me, is not simply about learning to ask the right questions. The formulation of useful questions is a valuable skill, but that skill by itself cannot produce useful answers yet. The exploration of the unknown also requires a certain facility for guesswork, or an ability to anticipate which among the several possible lines of inquiry are worth pursuing. An example from mathematics illustrates this. In math problem solving, one must select from a very large number of possible paths to a solution. However, there is often no objective way to know which of these many paths is likely to pan out. How is one to decide then? Mathematicians refer to the ability to make these choices as foresight. Over time, foresight has acquired an almost mythical status. Richard Feynman, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, was once asked about how to go about solving a problem. He answered that one should first stare at the problem very hard and then write down the solution. Feynman's point was that foresight is essential to problem solving, even if it's hard to describe and even it may be something that is rather less than rational. The point, it seems to me, is equally valid for other academic disciplines. What mathematicians call foresight, other scholars may refer to as perception or intuition. But whatever it is called, it is essential to success in the pursuit of knowledge. I believe that acquiring foresight is a particularly important part of the college education. This is because foresight is the indispensable counterpart to curiosity. Foresight includes the discipline of curiosity, but we want neither discipline nor curiosity alone. For curiosity without discipline becomes flabby, and discipline without curiosity invites narrow-mindedness. Paul Erdrich, a Hungarian-American mathematician, once observed that the main challenge when training promising math students did not have much to do with the teaching of particular techniques, such as calculus. What they really needed, Erdrich argued, was someone to, quote, influence their taste. I first read this when I was 15, and I wondered about what Erdrich meant by taste. Surely he didn't imply a judgmental taste, as we would sometimes describe taste in music or art. I have come to believe that he was instead referring to foresight, to the challenge of figuring out how to match our internal curiosities to the vast unknown out there. I do not know if Dartmouth can provide curiosity to those who lack it, but I do believe that the disciplining of curiosity through the cultivation of foresight is the ultimate purpose of a college education. For me, this is the greatest benefit that Dartmouth confers upon all of its students, regardless of disciplinary specialty or academic interest. I once heard of a story of a man asked by God to pick the best ears of wheat as he passes through it. He hesitates until the end, thinking that the best year would always be better. No need to say that he didn't make the best choice. We humans are rather like the man in the story, in that we cannot know the end of the field until we reach it. Yet I prefer to think that the moral of the story is not about making the best choices, but rather about knowing why we make the choices we do. Curiosity based on innocence suffices to little more than a memory, but curiosity based on self-awareness lasts. And that is why every day we behold the world fresh-eyed. But may our wonders be tempered by discipline, by foresight, which is a privilege of experience. Thank you.